Hi, everyone, and welcome to Valley of Depth, a podcast by Archaea Media. Archaea builds media brands around the critical technologies shaping national security. We do this through Payload, which covers the space industry, Ignition, which covers nuclear energy, and Tectonic, focused on defense tech, through journalism, events, and original research. The Valley of Depth, we're going deeper, talking to founders, investors, policymakers, and military leaders who are building and shaping some of the most complex and consequential technologies in the world. Today, we're joined by Erik Kriessmann, partner at Altimeter, a technology-focused investment firm that invests in both public and private markets globally. Erik is part of the privates portfolio, where he's been instrumental in the firm's investments into names like SpaceX, K2 Space, and Anduril. Erik and I chat about Altimeter's investment philosophy, how the firm makes investments, a deep dive on some of the portfolio companies, and much, much more. Erik, welcome to the show.
Mo, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's always great to have a good friend on the show in the hot seat.
Love it.
So I want to kick things off with a softball question. Did you always, look, you're at Altimeter, you're doing really amazing things, great team. Did you always know you wanted to be an investor?
You know, not as a child, right? Post-graduating college, I definitely thought I did. I just candidly didn't know if it was going to be possible for me. But yes, post-college, I always was like, man, how incredible would this be? How grateful would I be to be an investor? But I didn't know if it was possible for me. But as a kid, no, I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be something really cool when I was a kid.
And so tell me a little bit about the journey of sort of that to how you ended up in your first role at Index.
Yeah. So I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up just north of San Francisco in a town called San Rafael, and then went to Berkeley. So I was always around technology and growing up in the Bay Area. But again, I wasn't technical. I didn't grow up making video games. I certainly played my fair share, but sports and time and nature were really my thing until I got to college. And then, post-graduating college, I joined a startup. And after joining that startup, I joined a firm called SPMB, which was a boutique retained executive search firm. And I had a personal connection with one of the partners there. He was a cousin to one of my friends I grew up with, and we grew up in the same city. And so there was some shared life experience and connection, and he'd convinced me to join. And, it's a good thing that I listened. And I really lucked out when I joined this firm. I'm like 23 at the time. And this firm was a bit unique, right? Not many people know what retained executive search is, but this firm had really deep, long-standing relationships with all the top-tier venture capital firms, going back to when they partnered with Sequoia Capital to hire like the original CEO and VP sales at Cisco, right? And so this firm was only 25 people, but deeply embedded into the history of Silicon Valley. And I joined as a 23-year-old, and I'm working with Databricks, at Series A to hire their first chief product officer as they're trying to, figure out their first $1 million of revenue as an open source project. And, Confluent on their first CRO search right after Eric Vishria had led the Series A from Benchmark. And Snowflake, when Mike Spicer was still the acting CEO, before they had come out of stealth and helped them hire Bob Muglia and Denise Pearson, who's still the CMO today. So I was fortunate that, we had great relationships with these venture firms. We got paid as kind of like a retainer, like a retained executive fee, like a consultant or a lawyer might. And then we would also, be issued equity or invest alongside of into these companies. And we were helping them build out their management teams and build out their boards.
And I assume you must have been doing some work for Index, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So Index, Sequoia, Khosla, Benchmark, Excel, you can kind of go up and down the list. We're all clients who we partnered really closely with, which is ultimately how I got recruited to Khosla Ventures. And I got recruited there initially to like co-lead talent, right? And so I was working really closely with Keith and Vinod and Samir and Sven. Delian was there at the time. And this was just an incredible, like, formative experience. And I came there to kind of like build and lead talent. And I remember talking to Vinod. I'm like, Vinod, how are you going to determine if I'm good or if I'm successful? He's like, oh, I'm just going to ask the founder, like, hey, what do you think of Erik? And they're either going to say, Erik's incredible. Like, thank you so much for introducing me. He's been great. And he's like, I know if they like you, you're doing a great job. That's all I need to know. It's like this informal NPS. I'm like, okay, that feels a little, amorphous, but I'm into it. And so I kind of, took that as earn the right to be an essential partner to the entrepreneurs that we've backed. And so again, I was fortunate to be working with Keith and Vinod and these guys who are investing in these credible entrepreneurs. So like one of the first companies I was spending time with was Fair, Max Rhodes at Fair, right after we'd led the seed round. We're at like this Mint Plaza office. It was almost like this little apartment. There were like 6 people. In about 30 seconds, I realized how special Max was and the opportunity that that company had. And so I just made it my mission to, okay, I am going to be the most valuable person to him that is not a full-time employee of his company. And so, did the same thing with GitLab, did the same thing with a number of companies at Coastal over the couple of years there. And you quickly realize, and I realized this, from Vinod, from Keith, and we can talk about index because it's not too dissimilar, like talent identification, the team you build is the company you build. Like talent is the leading indicator to the success of any organization. These guys weren't making these investments based on some like really complicated, sophisticated analysis or data room or math or anything like that. They were making a bet on a team, on a person, on an individual who had a unique insight, who had an experience that was informing that, and had the opportunity to fundamentally like transform or go after a massive market opportunity. But they were betting on a team. And so I realized that pretty early on of like, wow, people are the underlying thing. Across all of this, like I know people, I enjoy people, I'm curious about people. And so that was like an aha moment for me and was an incredible experience. And so I spent a couple years at Coastal. Then I got recruited to Index by Mike Volpe and Shardul Shaw to come run all of talent. And there I had a complete blank slate. They really hadn't, ever done anything, at least in the US from a talent perspective. And so I could, make it my own, which was really an incredible experience. And there, again, I took a step back and like, okay, who are our stakeholders? You've got entrepreneurs, you've got future entrepreneurs and founders, you've got existing sort of like talent at the exec and non-exec level, you've got, LPs, board members. How do we just like take a step back and think about like, what is the relationship journey we want to have with these people? Almost like you might think about a customer journey, right? And so if you're a late stage company, you're thinking about going public, you're thinking about your audit chair, you're thinking about building out your board, you might be thinking about a public company CFO that's taking a company public you want to bring on, or your next sort of level of executive that can really take you into and through the public markets. And that's a certain type of sort of like need. Well, the same need that late stage company has, the early stage company can't hire that level of executive yet, but they want those people as angel investors or board members or advisors. Then you've got companies kind of in the middle that are like, I was working with Alex Wang at Scale AI on their CTO search, and they're only going to hire one CTO, but we're meeting a lot of great people in pursuit of that. And like one of those people was Brad Porter, who did join to be the CTO for a period of time and then left to start collaborative robotics, which, Coastal seeded, Sequoia did the A, General Catalyst did the B. And so you started to see all these like flywheels because talent is the sort of like lowest common denominator, right? Before a company is a company, it's a person or a group of people with an idea that then form a company. Right. And so I was at the center of like all of this talent in orbit across this incredible portfolio. And so that was like,
so how did you,
sorry, I get going and I get excited.
This is great. I'm curious. Okay. So you're doing all this great work for different talent teams. How did you then go from
building the talent team, working directly with the CEOs at these companies?
Correct.
And then we started to like realize that, okay, we were the like go-to partner for our companies on their top priorities. So we were helping them, sort of identify the core risks and opportunities in their businesses, and then being their partner to de-risk or attack each of those opportunities. And we were only aligning to like, okay, what is the one thing an investor can do for you this year that will fundamentally like bend the curve or transform the trajectory of your company? Well, when you identify that with a founder, you partner with them on that, you deliver that gets brought up in the board meeting, right? Like that is what's important. And so I was doing that at the same time. Again, this network that I had built was starting to deliver like very interesting deal flow to Index. And so right? Like I sourced Bridge for Index, which then, myself and Chris Hahn ended up co-leading the seed, which recently got acquired for Stripe for over $1 billion. And, these founders and these CEOs are talking about me in these board meetings that I'm not in, candidly, at the time. And so, Altimeter was a good partner to Index and had a bunch of co-investments in companies like Confluent and ClickHouse, among others. And from what they told me, they started to hear about me in these board meetings. And they're like, who is this Erik guy that is delivering this thing and getting these call outs by the CEO in the board meeting on these fundamentally like really critical things? And he's like, not here. Like, who is this guy? And Jamin and I knew each other a little bit. And so there was an early beginnings of a friendship there. And so I started to get to know them, and they were starting to think about like, okay, do we want this capability at Altimeter? How do you do it? How do you think about it? How do you build it? So that's what started the relationship, is like, I was just kind of helping them think through this. And then at a certain point, they were like, have you ever thought about being an investor? Like, you've done the hard part. You've earned the right to be this essential partner to entrepreneurs and talent in the ecosystem. Like, you have a great network, you have a great reputation. You're sourcing and doing some interesting deals almost as like a side project. Would you want to come do this full time? Like, we think you have really unique potential. We think you could be great if you wanted to be great, if you wanted that for yourself. And like, Index is a special firm, it's special people. But it was just too good of an opportunity, too unique of an opportunity to work with Brad, to work with Jim, and to work with now the team that we formed over there. Small but mighty team, have a seat at the table, be able to invest in and lead the types of investments that I would want to. And so I jumped at the opportunity once it presented itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super unique story. I love it. So I want to talk about, let's talk about Altimeter. So like, you're joining Altimeter, not a surprise that you would join a firm like that. So let's talk a little bit about the history, right? So I think it's like 2008, Brad starts the firm with a few $1 million. Today, almost 20 years later, north of 10 billion in assets across private and publics. Talk a little bit about the Altimeter sort of investment philosophy that's allowed the firm to grow as it's done in such a relatively short period of time.
Yeah. So the core thing at Altimeter is earning the right to partner with the most exceptional entrepreneurs and companies, whether they're public or private, right? Like, why have a constraint that, we can't invest in this company because it's public, or we can't invest in this company that's private? Like, invest in special companies regardless of what market they're in. And so that was kind of like Brad's desire, which I think was like, hey, it's really early version of a crossover fund. And then, more of the philosophy beyond that, like, Brad is a big fan of essentialism. And I think, like, in order to be successful at Altimeter, like, you also need to believe this. And that really spoke to me when I was getting to know them and considering joining, is that few things matter, right? Like, less but better. Wait for your pitch. Diversification is the enemy of outlier returns, right? Special founders build special companies, and you need to know how to recognize greatness and be a great partner and earn the right to concentrate capital into those couple of companies that are going to benefit from something sort of unique that's changing in the world, either that they're changing or they're benefiting from. We like to call them supercycles. Other people call them paradigm shifts. We talk a lot about catalysts and these types of things, but that really resonated with me. Like, that is our philosophy. We are, currently investing out of our 7th venture fund. Like, I don't know if we've made more than 70 total investments, right? And we are comfortable concentrating what other people might consider uncomfortable, like having uncomfortable amounts of concentration in fewer number of companies to benefit from the power law. Like, we believe in the power law, and we're going to be patient and intentional to earn the right to partner with the couple of companies that we think can really have, outlier success. And, oftentimes those companies, there's lower likelihood of success, but the magnitude is quite massive. And that's where it comes into play of like, okay, well, you can systematically identify how to improve the odds of success little by little over time, and those compound, and then that also leads to a much larger sort of outcome potential. So that's our philosophy in a nutshell, and no dogma in terms of the stage that we'll invest in. We're not really doing like small toehold checks, but we will lead a Series A and take a board seat. We will write a really large, $100 million plus check into a late stage business as well. Again, the underlying thing is deep personal conviction in, is this a special company, or does this have the right to become one of this generation's special companies?
Talk a little bit about the public-private side of the firm, right? Like how do insights from the public side like inform your private market bets or vice versa? And how do you kind of think about it? Is it an edge?
I absolutely believe it's an advantage. One, like the team is small, right? So the access and the insight combined with the small team size, first and foremost, just allows us to be better partners to the teams that we do invest in. And that's critical. It's not enough to be smart. You've got to have insight, and you need to have relationships to be viewed as a great partner. So it starts there. And then yes, like what was going on in the private markets with AI in 2022 helped inform our public market investment into NVIDIA. And our NVIDIA investment helped inform our private market investment into CoreWeave. And our relationship with Snowflake that started when they were pre-revenue and still persists today helped inform our investments into Samuha, which Snowflake later acquired, and into Tabular, which Databricks recently acquired, into other great companies like Sigma and ClickHouse. And so absolutely, there is no doubt that having a small public and private team that can fit around one conference room table is 100% an advantage.
How do you guys make decisions? Like, do you need consensus? Like, what's sort of the IC process look like? And also,
Brad is the CEO and the founder. He is the CIO. He does have it is very rigorous. There's nowhere to hide. Like you have to do the work at Altimeter. You can't outsource it. You have to be able to convince the people around the table that you've done the work to have the trust. But ultimately, it is a partner-driven model. So it comes down to deep personal conviction at the partner level. There's a lot of conversations that go on amongst the team as you're doing that work, kind of filling everyone in. Hey, I'm spending time with this team. Here's why I'm excited. Here's the work I'm doing. Here's what I'm learning. They're kind of stress testing. They're asking questions. You're going back. So there's a bunch that goes on there, but ultimately nobody at Altimeter is going to tell you, you should do this investment, right? Some people might say, hey, I like it. I understand it. I'm supportive. Other people might say, I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't think we should do it. But ultimately, one of the things that I really value and that we have is there's deep trust and also deep accountability. And so it is almost impossible to make a new investment at Altimeter if you don't have that deep level of conviction and belief. And the team's small. We know what each other look like and how we talk about a team and a company when we are at 10 out of 10. And so, if you're not, you can kind of say hey man, you don't seem like you're quite there. Where's the hesitation? Have you not done this work, or is something holding you back? And so that's really unique. But you do have the opportunity, even if nobody else loves it, to go to Brad and say, hey, I really want to do this. Here's why. Here's all the work I've done. Here's how the team thinks about it. They hate it. I still love it. I really want to do it. And he might say, fantastic. How can I help? Here's what I think. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. I want to spend time with the founders and I want to discuss this. Or hey, I absolutely love it. I understand it. We have a deep conversation. And then, hey, how can I help you win? Or he might say, I agree with everybody else. I do not think this is a good idea. I can see how much conviction you have. I trust all the work that you've done, but I don't think this is the right investment for us today. And here's why. And so it is very individually driven instead of, here's this investment process. Let me bring this deal in. Everyone gets a vote. After we get the vote, there's a weighted average, and now you've got approval to do it. Not that one is right or wrong, but this is our sort of system of how we make investments, and I think it's great.
Well, it seems to be working. So I want to touch on a term you used earlier, supercycle. So Altimeter has historically invested in software, and I'm pretty sure I've heard both you and Brad use the term software supercycle. Are we still
definitely AI supercycle?
AI supercycle. Are we in a software supercycle? Are we now in a hardware supercycle? Like, talk to me about the supercycle that we're in today. What does that look like to you?
I think there's oftentimes like concurrent super cycles. I'd say we're absolutely in the upswing, the beginnings of an AI super cycle. I'd say we're in the upswings in the beginning of a space super cycle. I think we are seeing exceptionally talented teams going after market opportunities that they maybe haven't historically, as a result of the success of companies like SpaceX and Palantir. You are seeing a exodus of talent from those companies who were a part of building them into the massive successes that they are. They learned a lot at those companies, unique insights on market opportunities that those companies are or aren't addressing that they could go after, really unique capabilities on how to attack those markets. And so, I think those are the two that I spend a lot of time and we spend a lot of time. And of course, there's others that feed into both of those. But I'd say those are two of the big ones.
And generally speaking, right, what are these types of opportunities or technologies right now that Altimeter is excited about, or that you guys are really kind of leaning into?
I think you could look at our portfolio and that would let you know what we're excited about. I think obviously AI, within AI, there's incredible innovation happening at the model level. I think we're getting more excited about ultimately like the products that all of us are going to be using. That's really exciting. And then there's the infrastructure below that. There's really unique data infrastructure and security and hardware all the way to the chip stack, all the way down to like the energy, which fuels into all the way into unique types of fuel. And minerals and mining, then you get into like autonomy and heavy equipment. So like we tend to think about, okay, well, what are the new products or experiences that, and what are the big trend lines? And then what does that entire sort of like value chain or industry sort of look like? And where is there opportunity to do something better or innovate there? And so that's some of it. Obviously, we've made big investments on the aerospace and defense side in SpaceX and Anduril and K2, and each of those have sort of, I'd say, unique insights and are building very interesting businesses as well.
So, just a general question, because I want to get inside your head on this idea of founder evaluation, since you were so integral in helping on the talent side for some of these companies. What do you evaluate in a founder? What are sort of special qualities and experiences that you look for?
There are, like, I've got two ways to answer this. One is you meet with someone and yes, like their personal story, I do believe is very important, right? Like, what is their story? What is their experience and unique insight? Why are they curious about this? What's informing their point of view? Why do they think they have the right to go after this opportunity? Like, you want to spend time on all of those things to really understand that. And then there's like this intangible piece that is just kind of like this special feeling, maybe similar to like, NBA scouts who saw LeBron James when he was in like probably middle school, but even high school, like in a gym, like you kind of just recognize greatness, right? Like the special founders pretty quickly realized like, wow, this person is special. This person is unique. I want to spend a lot more time going down the rabbit hole with them. And the great ones take you really far down. And that's where you start to really understand who they are and understand the opportunity that they're going after. And, ideally, like you're learning, it's first like, wow, this is a special person. This special person has identified a unique opportunity and they are uniquely capable of going after this opportunity. And we can be a great partner to them on improving the odds and the magnitude of the success of the opportunity that they've identified.
I want to switch gears for a second. So, and talk a little bit about kind of broader national security and what we're seeing sort of geopolitically. And, there's no doubt over the last 3 or so years, there's been an influx in investors who care about geopolitics and national security and kind of weaving that into their investment thesis. I'm curious, how is it how are you guys thinking about it at Altimeter? How does it affect your investment decisions? Is the political environment affecting your thinking or positioning, or are you more of the, 4-year camp, and then there's going to be a different administration, or maybe not? Maybe we'll have a third term. We'll see. But how are we? How are you thinking about sort of geopolitics, national security, and sort of politics? Does that weigh in as part of the decisions around investing?
I think it has to weigh in, right? Like as you think about anything, it's like you should always be adding data points to your data model of how you're trying to connect dots on what the future may look like, who might benefit, who might not benefit from things that are going on. Now, how heavily do you weight those? What decisions do you make on those in publics and privates, right? But you need to be paying attention to all this stuff. I think specifically some of the things that we've seen that have led to investments. One, like there was no Space Force 6-7 years ago. Now we have a Space Force. So because of the national security threat in that domain in space, there has been, a new branch created and significant funding geared towards that, right? And so that has led to investments in SpaceX. That has led to investments in Anduril and K2, because now there is a even more interesting, unique market opportunity for those companies to really build great businesses with the government. Also, some of them commercially, and then obviously they're not only benefiting from that, but they're benefiting from, SpaceX is benefiting what they've done for themselves. And then an entire ecosystem is benefiting from what SpaceX has done in terms of, cost to get to orbit, reliability, cadence of launch, which is now, as well as like the talent who has come out and is designing for mass manufacturing to take advantage of sort of like that highway to space, I guess you could say. So yeah, we're absolutely paying attention to all those things. Who's going to be, where tariffs going to land, who's going to be winners in that. The world is a very dynamic, interconnected place. And so you need to be paying attention to these things, to inform and make good investment decisions. As one data point, as one data point.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, you said the term space supercycle. I've heard you use that in the past as well. Did you think we were in a space supercycle prior to the K2 investment, or was it sort of something you felt like you learned as you were diligencing the business? Obviously, you recently co-led the $110 million Series B with Lightspeed. So clearly you, at that point, knew that we're in a space supercycle. But talk a little bit about, you guys are investing in SpaceX as well. And you mentioned a couple of the things, but are you how excited are you about what's going on in the industry?
We're excited. Yeah, we're definitely excited. I think the data, the trend lines are pretty clear. I don't know. You could disagree if you think we're not in a space supercycle, but I think you look at the number.
Hard for me to disagree with that.
Yeah, the data is pretty clear here. The number of launches, mass to orbit, the vast majority of that is SpaceX. The funding going into the category, the creation of the Space Force, the funding for the Space Force, the creation of space programs for other countries across the world. The data is pretty clear, and so yes, we are excited. Now, we also aren't going to make 50 investments in the market or the category. We do think that the vast majority of the profit dollars will pool to a couple of companies. And so, we've made a couple of investments there. We might make another, we might not. We might continue to concentrate capital into the couple that we've already made.
So, that sort of answers my next question, which is, are you going to make additional investments in space? But why don't I ask something slightly different, which is is there something you're looking out for? Is there, kind of during your diligence, is there an idea or concept, a technology that you wish existed, or is there any kind of parts of the industry that or the value stack that you're spending more time on than others?
In space specifically.
In space specifically. Let's just kind of stick with space for now.
Yeah. I think SpaceX is going to own proliferated LEO. I think there are very large, interesting opportunities in high LEO, MEO, GEO, other orbital planes. And I think there's some interesting defense sort of, needs as well in space. I also think that, the couple of companies that we have invested in are going to continue to compound and do more and more on top of their platforms or capabilities, and are almost like building companies within the company, if that makes sense. Now, like, ground infrastructure could certainly be improved. So, perhaps there's a unique market opportunity there. Space to ground, ground to space lasers is certainly a holy grail technology once that occurs, right? Instead of RF, if you've got light, it's not regulated spectrum. It's very hard to detect or jam. And so those are, I'd say, that is like one technology in particular that I think the entire industry is pretty excited about. Now, like, is SpaceX just going to solve that? Is K2 just going to solve that? Perhaps. So I think there are fundamental breakthroughs that will benefit, probably the entire ecosystem. Will that be a standalone company, or will that be a team within one of these companies? Kind of TBD. So we're looking at all this stuff, but again, we do very few investments, and so we aren't really trying to take an index approach and invest in every single company across every sort of like little nook and cranny of the ecosystem.
All right, I want to jam with you on something, and I'm not expecting an answer from you because I don't think anyone really knows the answer. But Mars, what do you think of Mars?
Yeah.
Is this a like? If you,
I don't want to go to Mars. I was in San Francisco during COVID when, the fires were going and we had like the orange day. And I remember going up on my roof and it's like dark and orange. And I'm like, are we sure we want to go to Mars? Elon's probably, well, if he listens to this, like, incredible, he probably won't see it. I understand, right, like the importance of the mission and the reason to go bring humanity to other planets. And so I do think it's important. I do think it's, aspirational. I do think these types of ambition is like critical for humanity. I personally just don't have a desire to go live on Mars.
But would you, but
so,
like startups, startups who are building a business model around a Mars economy, for you right now, is that like, hey, that's a little too
not investment for me?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. I think SpaceX will be successful in their pursuit of getting to Mars. I do not think that, and I think that they will probably, as they historically have done, vertically integrated and solve their own needs in order for them to accomplish that mission. I think it's going to be really difficult for other companies. They don't want to depend on other companies for their core mission. And so I think it's going to be difficult for other companies to build a standalone, enduring business solving something there, at least today. I think over time, yes, the entire space economy will evolve and mature, and there might be more interesting sort of businesses within space. I think today it's predominantly communications, right? Like connectivity. I think it's, there's some ISR, there's some EW work, right? Like it's kind of the core things that really generate the revenue for the market.
Maybe, $500 billion Golden Dome program. We'll see.
That big, I think, what they're saying, maybe 35 billion to start. But yes, Golden Dome absolutely is going to be a big driver of, funding a lot of investment into capabilities that, again, like will eventually like lead to other cool things. But yes, defense, there are like, there's defense and commercial, and like the way to make money in two of those is like there's a couple of things that generate a lot of the revenue in both of those markets.
So let's talk about Anduril. I know it's a big focus of yours, along with the companies we mentioned, but talk to me a little bit about what attracted Altimeter to Anduril first. Like, what was that first attraction? Like, when you guys evaluated the company, like what stood out about Palmer Luckey's team, or just the approach that gave you conviction?
Yeah, the team. Right, like it's a team. It's a clearly great team. You've got Palmer, you've got Brian, you've got Trey, you've got Matt, you've got Babak, you've got Gokul. Gokul. You could go on and on and on about all the incredible people sort of involved in the business. And so you had a really unique combination and complementary group of founders. Christian Bros and Steckman, and so like they were exceptional on kind of like DC BD growth and capture. And then they had like true sort of, innovation and vision on the technology side, both software and hardware. And so, they were able to pair those two together and then raise venture capital And so they were able to self-fund development of these things and rapidly go, show the DoD like, hey, we've already built this thing. It's ready. It's here for you. Like, you don't have to give us the money and then wait 5 years for us to come back with a prototype. And so they were just accelerating all of that. And they clearly had unique insight. I mean, they'd been making a ton of progress, a special team, an opportunity. And, so it was kind of just obvious that they're going to be a massive winner, and that, one, global defense spending is increasing. Two, the allocation of those defense dollars are slowly but surely going to be reallocated towards more, advanced software designed, autonomous, smaller sort of attritable systems, as well as still large, exquisite stuff. But the overall dollars were growing, and the shift of how those dollars are going to be spending to get more capability per dollar was really in the favor of Anduril. And then they were able to, do sort of firm fixed pricing versus, cost plus, and, have a better underlying cost structure, which just allows them to have a better business. And so it was a combination of all those things.
What is having been on the Anduril journey now for a little bit, taught you about sort of navigating the DoD procurement process, or how to compete with a traditional defense contractor?
It's probably more important than the technology, is the takeaway.
Yeah.
You ultimately need to deliver, right? Like, you need to deliver at scale. Your systems do need to work for the customer, or you will not build a special, enduring, standalone business. But early on, before you have a bunch of stuff that works, you need to convince the customer to trust you, to believe on you, to bet on you. And so you have to really understand how to sell to the government. And if you don't, they are not going to care about your cool piece of technology. You need to understand how to attach it to a requirement for a capability that's like critical, and something that they already want, to earn the right to partner with them on things that are truly unique and innovative, or you're really crafting then the requirements and the capabilities for other sort of, needs and mission sets. And so that really kind of stands out from the experience working with Anduril. And then also, like, identifying big pockets of capital that are coming down the pipe where, hey, you can acquire technology, bring it into the organization and rapidly sort of like mature that to go after these really large program opportunities. And so both organic, inorganic growth, I think Anduril has been just masterful at.
So I want to talk about the government customer perspective, in that, I think there's this bet that's being taken across the defense tech startup ecosystem. And that general bet is that these companies are going to be able to meaningfully expand margin with a government customer who has proven or has communicated in 10 different ways that they're hell-bent on reducing costs and inefficiencies. So how do you think about building a defense tech company sort of in that sort of like atmosphere and dynamic? Like, how does Anduril, where do you think the margin expansion for Anduril is going to come from, so that it doesn't end up looking like, what Lockheed is today? And, I think the classic example everyone brings up is Palantir, but that they don't talk about how so much, and a majority of Palantir's revenue comes from the commercial side of the house, not the government side of the house. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I actually think that it's not like the government is trying to slash the budget. They're just trying to get more per dollar, right? They want more capability per dollar. So they're happy to spend the money. They just want product and capability that's delivered, on time and the quality and works, right? And so if they can get more for their money, and you can develop product with a better cost structure because, you don't have 60 years of cost plus sort of organizational inertia that you're stuck with, you do have the ability to go like compete head to head against an existing prime. The dollar amount of the program is the dollar amount of the program. If your underlying cost to serve or deliver the capability is less, you're going to have better margins, right? And so, and again, that comes back to how they develop product, and vertically integrating a bit more, or benefiting from software. And so it all comes back to, like, you have to have some sort of operating leverage, or innovation within the company itself. And then, yes, of course, cost plus, you're gonna have a tough time expanding margins. In certain programs, it makes sense to, in certain it doesn't. But the more firm fixed, it's like, hey, the government is saying we are willing to pay this amount per this thing. If you can deliver it for a significantly lower cost per thing to the customer, you're going to have better margins. You're going to have a better business.
Yeah. Are we in a bubble? I'll be more specific. Are we in a bubble within sort of defense and deep tech?
I think so.
Because we're definitely in a bubble in AI.
Yeah. And if you look at, like, cycles of technology and investment, like, there's always these periods of, I don't know if I'd say overinvestment, but, massive amounts of capital deployed into specific markets or areas of, technology. And that's kind of a feature, right? Like that's kind of the point, is it becomes like, hey, there's a massive opportunity here. So a bunch of people want to invest, and most of the companies don't amount to anything. And a couple are like outliers and go on to be some of the largest companies that the world's ever seen. And so, yes, is there perhaps a bubble in defense tech right now? Perhaps. I also think we are in a moment of, like, fundamental shift that will take time, but is clearly, going to benefit the couple of companies that have the right teams, have the right ideas, have the right approaches, have the right technology, that are going to come out of this and have the opportunity to be very large companies. Now, there probably isn't going to be 100 of them in defense, but there will be a handful that come out of this bubble, and build really, I believe, special, large, enduring businesses.
Have you has Altimeter invested in any pure play defense names outside of Anduril?
No, Anduril is the pure play. SpaceX dual use, K2 dual use.
I'd be curious as to sort of why that might be the case, because, there have been a handful of, on surface level, like, really great companies that are doing kind of meaningful things within the defense ecosystem. So kind of curious, like, how you think about the not Anduril, like.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the entire investing philosophy of Altimeter, which is less but better. We want to be in the outliers, in the companies that capture the vast majority of the profit dollars of the industry. Defense, there's 5 or 6 companies that really matter. So how many more might there be, right? Like, SpaceX is one of them.
So I guess what you're saying is any incremental dollar that goes to another defense company from Altimeter has to stand up to the challenge of, does it make sense to just put that extra dollar into Anduril?
Of course. And by the way, we ask that question for every investment across every category of, like, is the incremental dollar from the fund, is this the best use of the incremental dollar from our fund into this new thing, or into one of our existing best ideas that's already working very well? If we believe in power law, if we believe in compounders, if we believe that these companies are going to get very big, and perhaps bigger than, other companies, in history, absolutely. We kind of think about that. Now, like, we're not dogmatic. Of course, there are other companies that are exceptional teams going after unique opportunities. And so is Anduril going to be the only winner? Probably not. Are they going to be the biggest, like, pure play defense company? I'm not including SpaceX in this. Like, maybe, probably, right? And so, yeah, we want to concentrate our capital into the companies that are clearly executing and performing, because we want to benefit from the power laws of venture capital that we believe in.
What exit paths are most realistic for all these companies? And I'm not talking about Anduril, because Anduril's on its way to becoming a public company, but for everyone else.
Yeah. I think the reality of venture capital is the exit path for most companies is, like, shutting down or no success.
Right. No exit.
No exit, or not an ideal exit for anybody. And that's just the reality of the industry. Now, there's obviously unique exit paths, like companies are staying private a lot longer and employees and early investors are able to get liquidity in the private markets for a long time. Look at SpaceX right now or Databricks right now. And so, there are opportunities for companies to stay private longer as an exit path. There's certainly going to be some M&A opportunities. There will be some public companies, and then there will be a lot of companies that just don't quite work out. But it takes courage to try, and it's important that, people are trying. Now that's also healthy for the ecosystem when things don't work out and talent consolidates into the couple of companies that are working. You want that density of talent in the best companies working on the biggest opportunities. I think that's also important.
Any areas in defense tech that you feel like are underinvested today?
I don't think so, man. There's a lot of money flowing in. So I don't think there's anything that's underinvested in per se. I think everything is getting plenty of investment.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, capital is not a constraint.
Yeah. I mean, do you actually? I'd be actually curious. Like, are you looking at defense names outside of the U.S. ecosystem? Is Europe kind of, especially what's going on in Europe? There's clearly some renewed momentum and a new drive to kind of build that ecosystem there. Is that an area you're spending any time in?
There certainly is, and there are some interesting companies, especially some companies coming out of Israel. It hasn't been like my P0 priority focus, but certainly keeping an eye on it and open-minded to the opportunities that are kind of like unique in those regions, especially I think ultimately like they will need to expand and partner with the US and expand and sell to the US market and Europe more broadly. But there's absolutely, like, going back to your question around like geopolitical climates and dynamics, there are reasons that, Europe and those regions are going to want more of their own sovereign capabilities across missiles or space or things that they historically have, been able to depend on the US or other or allies for. I think there is probably a realization of like, oh, like maybe we need more of this capability ourselves to ensure that we have this and we don't have to depend on others. But TBD how that plays out. I am very focused in the US as an investor, just because I want to play where I feel like I'm an insider and I have unique insight and network and the ability to win and make really good decisions given the few decisions that I do make. And we don't have a mandate to invest in everything in any particular market. Like, our only mandate is outlier returns, venture-like returns for our LPs. And so if we believe that we have identified a team and an opportunity in that region where, hey, that's the best use of the incremental dollar of the fund, absolutely. But if not, then we're not going to focus or prioritize it.
So I'm going to switch gears again for a second. If you go to sleep tonight and you wake up tomorrow morning and all of a sudden you have a completely different job, what would it be? That you can choose.
Man, I'm happy what I'm doing. I'm like very happy what I'm doing.
Doesn't count.
Okay, but I can choose. I can't do what I'm doing today. If I could wake up and do something else, I think I'd really like to be an architect. That would be really cool.
Architect.
I think I'd really enjoy that. Building there's something special about, building something physical that will outlast you, that other people will experience and enjoy. Like Ricardo Bofill is like this exceptional architect that I really admire. And, he's got buildings all over the world and, he's passed away, but like, those buildings and those projects sort of live on and can be enjoyed and experienced by others. And so that's a profession that I have an immense amount of respect for. So maybe that.
Space stations, maybe.
Space stations, maybe. Something with dogs.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Man, it's a privilege. Like doing this job that I'm doing now, it's really a privilege. Like getting this, people say that, and like I don't know if everybody means it, but like I think you also have to love it. You have to have the love of the game to even have the opportunity to be a great partner or be great or make good investments. And I genuinely do, man. These like entrepreneurs and founders are just incredible, and what they're trying to do is so inspirational. So like having the opportunity to spend time with them, to partner with them, to invest in them, to be helpful to them, and then generate returns for our LPs and some of the causes there. Like it's just I feel really good about it, and I didn't know that this career was a possible path for me, even when I thought about it, like how cool would that be? And now that I'm in it, it's like, man, don't take it for granted one day.
So those that know me know that I'm obsessed with music, and you're one of the few people who I actually share songs with, kind of back and forth on a relatively regular basis. And you're also one of the few people that sends me songs that I don't tell to stop sending me songs because they're good songs. So I'm going to ask a question I've never asked on this show, which is like, what do you listen to? What are you listening to these days? What's a concert you're going to? Upcoming concert that you're going to or you want to go to?
Man, I've been listening to the new Kendrick album kind of just on repeat. I haven't had I've been listening to that. I've been listening to old Marvin Gaye, like kind of smooth music in the car cruising, and then Kendrick at the gym on repeat, which isn't too exciting, and then a bunch of like other SoundCloud type of music that pops up that I couldn't even tell you who it is. Fred again, I really like Fred again. Anything that's bouncy and good vibes, I enjoy. Concerts upcoming.
There's not much of I don't think there's a big music scene in San Francisco, but I hear.
Hey. No, I think Anderson .Paak played like a few weeks ago. I don't know. Maybe I'll go to Outside Lands. I always enjoy going to that when I do. I don't know if like Kendrick came to Chase again, that would be awesome. Like I'd love to go see that. I remember the Drake, like It's All a Blur tour a few years ago at Chase was.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right. Fair enough.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Black Coffee live. That would be fun.
I just saw Black Coffee actually a couple months ago or a few months ago in Park City. That was good. He's good. He's really good.
Thanks for the invite.
Well, yeah, next time. But Erik, really appreciate you being on the show. This is awesome. Thank you. And looking forward to all the great new investments that you guys are going to be working on over the next many, many years.
Appreciate you having me, Mo. This was fun as always.
Until next time.
All righty. See ya.